everybody to our Superset meetup for August. Appreciate taking the time out of your busy schedule. Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are. Happy to have you here. And so today we have a lot of great stuff to kind of cover. And so I don't want to waste any more time, doing introductions, but, we have a Q&A box on the bottom that you can ask questions during and throughout the meetup. And people, we won't answer them immediately because we want to be able to give people the opportunity to upvote, but also we can kind of talk about it so that everyone can see the questions at the end of the meetup. And so feel free to answer or ask questions in that Q&A box there. And so we'll kind of get straight into some of the general agenda for today. The main kind of event will be talking about 0.37, our latest release and what's new. And so Villa, one of the committers and PMC members, will be presenting today on that. One of the things that he'll also be covering is, what goes behind a release process. So we always get a lot of questions on like, hey, what actually goes behind releasing a new version of Superset? And so he'll be talking about that, as well as what it takes to kind of continue to move the momentum forward. Our goal is to really push Superset releases at a faster pace going forward. And so what are some of the next steps and how can we go and march towards 0.38? At the end of the presentation, we'll also be covering really quickly some exciting stuff on the new Superset website. So if you guys have been to the Apache website, it looks a bit dated, and that's kind of an understatement, but that's kind of where our docs are hosted. And so we've been putting some time and effort here to kind of revamp the new Superset website, as well as the documentation. And so that's something that we will be launching soon. And so we'll spend some time, a few minutes kind of showing you guys the new website design and layout. So we're excited to do that. And then one thing that we also are doing right now in the process of is actually we're marching towards graduating from the Apache Foundation. So if you have seen, if you're new to Superset, you know that we are still technically incubating with the Apache Foundation. And so we're marching towards full graduation. And our goal is to push towards kind of a major release of Superset. And that's kind of what we call Superset 1.0 here. And then at the end, we'll have some time for additional Q&A. Again, we'll kind of read through the questions in our Q&A chat box. And then we'll have some time, if we have a few minutes left at the end, we'll have open mic for anyone who wants to kind of make announcements or shout outs and whatnot. Feel free to raise your hand if you're muted as an attendee. Feel free to raise your hand and I can go ahead and unmute you so you can make any sort of announcements that you want. So without more, I'll pass it on to Villa to kind of present on 0.37.
All right, thanks, Alan. Just a second, I'll just share my screen. All right, is it sharing?
Yep.
Great. So yeah, hi everyone. So my name is Ville from Preset, and I was the release manager for 0.37, and I'm going to be walking you through this release. And like Alan said, I'm also going to be talking about the release process in general and kind of release process going forward. So yeah, getting this release out was an extremely painful experience, and we had to go through 4 release candidates, and it took more than a month to complete the release. And the time interval between 0.36 and 0.37 was approximately 4 months. And during this release process, we merged 345 pull requests. And just kind of comparing to 0.36, we released 250 pull requests in that. So this is an increase of roughly 1/3. So quite a bit more stuff going into this one. And we got contributions from 40 people. So again, comparing to the previous release, that was 33 people. So seeing more community involvement here as well. And I think something that really kind of stood out in this release was just the kind of outstanding community participation. It kind of made it slightly painful because we had to do a bunch of release candidates. But I think in the end, this was kind of this was definitely a positive thing, because otherwise we would have ended up releasing a very bad 0.37.0. So big thanks for everyone who reported issues and helped kind of triage problems and kind of ironing out all the kinks that were in the release candidates. So
I'll make a quick comment here, but yeah, we're really grateful for all the help around the release. We can always use more help too. So I think the quality of the release is reflective of how much people are helping and stabilizing it too. So we can always use more people testing. So when you see an announcement of an RC, a release candidate coming out, we really appreciate when people can step in and kind of test that in their environment or in their staging environment and give us some pointers as to how to make that release better quickly, so we can converge quickly and release in a fast way.
Yeah, I don't think that can be kind of emphasized more, too much. I think it's by far the most important thing I think the community members can do. So yeah, so as a committer and someone who kind of works on the code base on a daily basis, I think it's actually easy to forget how much we're actually doing and how much kind of features and new stuff is going into the code base. So I think just doing new releases is actually kind of a good way of getting perspective on what has actually been achieved since the last release. And I'm not going to be going through this whole list. I think this has actually been really well documented on one of the blog posts on the Preset blog. But I think some of the stuff that really kind of stands out is Slack integration. I think this is a really great way of kind of introducing Superset into kind of as kind of serving it on the fly and getting it on your mobile phone. So kind of a good portal into Superset in a way. And then there's actually a feature that I use a lot and that I used to kind of hope for being integrated, but I never really did anything about it. But there's this maximize feature now, which was a community contribution. Essentially, I think when you're working with charts that are kind of very dense with detailed information, I think being able to zoom into that chart is a very good feature. So now with this feature, you can kind of full screen a chart and kind of dive deep into what the chart is actually showing, and then when you're done with it, you can minimize it back into the dashboard. So a really great feature, I think. And then on the database layer, there was a bunch of small stuff. So for instance, partition filtering support for Presto, CSV upload support for Athena, and then Excel sheet uploads. And I think this Athena CSV upload thing was actually really nice because this was originally reported as a bug on Superset, but then it turned out that this was actually a bug on PyAthena. So then this was then raised on the PyAthena GitHub page, and then that project then made the fix and then made a new release of PyAthena that Superset then upgraded to. So I think this was a great example of how open source can really kind of benefit everyone, and kind of Superset led to PyAthena, and then everyone benefits. So I think that's kind of a really great show of open source. And kind of just 345 pull requests is a lot, but it's kind of difficult to see any kind of big patterns just kind of by looking at this massive change log on the repo. So I grouped these pull requests by kind of rough type, and this is what that analysis essentially boiled down to. So it seems like the majority of pull requests actually dealt with code quality improvements, and this actually makes me very happy because while code quality improvements don't really kind of do anything in the short term. They're actually what makes it possible to scale up development of Superset and makes it possible to add features and adding stability. So I think this is, I'm really happy to see that so much effort is going into stabilizing Superset and making the code base more robust. And secondly, it appears improvements to Viz dashboards and Explore is fairly well represented here as well. And of course, that's to be expected. I think if we weren't doing these pull requests, it'd be kind of a weird thing. So really happy to see that. And I think kind of going forward, these were mostly, I think, small fixes that kind of fixed bugs or introduced small incremental improvements on existing visualizations. But I think going forward, we're going to be seeing a lot more of this stuff. So really looking forward to the coming forthcoming releases. And then one thing that sets 0.37 apart from previous releases is this concept of superset improvement proposals that are kind of very well represented here. So in this release, we actually had 5 kind of major superset improvement proposals in kind of parallel development. And I think the most kind of well represented SIPs here are the SIP38 or Viz plugin re-architecture, and then SIP34, which is kind of the visual redesign of Superset. And SIP38 or the Viz plugin re-architecture is mostly done now, and it's I think fairly stable at this point. So I think the focus on that front is going to be shifting more and more towards the actual development of new visualization plugins. And then on with regards to SIP34 or the redesign, I think if you install Superset 0.37 now, you're going to notice that it looks much nicer than the previous releases. But I think going forward, 0.38 and beyond, I think I'm expecting to see the kind of visual appeal to be becoming much better in the coming months. So really looking forward to that. And then kind of just in retrospect, you know, what some of the challenges with the 0.37.0 was. So I think the biggest problem was really the way too long release interval we had. So I think this was kind of proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that having a 4-month release cadence is way too long. So what this led together with the high development velocity of the code base was essentially multiple small bugs creeping into the code base. And I think just you know, even if the committers are using the product a lot, they're not using it as broadly as the full community. So once we actually started closing in on, you know, started releasing the first release candidates, that's when all of these bugs actually started surfacing. So I think if there's any kind of takeaway from this release, it is, you know, release more often and release smaller, and that's definitely something that we're going to be taking to heart in the upcoming releases. And then I think just the fact that we just did so many SIPs at the same time, you know, doing 5 major development efforts can be kind of difficult to organize, and I think it's kind of unavoidable that you're going to see some clashing. And kind of just to kind of kick myself a bit, so I think the biggest single source of bugs here was the development of the new Viz plugin architecture. So that really caused a lot of teething pains, and it kind of essentially broke the word cloud chart for a long time. But I'm kind of happy to see that this is mostly behind us now. So I think now that we actually have a new visualization architecture, we're going to be able to scale that up a lot. So I'm really expecting to see a bunch of really nice Viz plugins coming out, and we're actually seeing those already on and anyone who wants to see what's going on in there should be joining the Slack channel and checking out the discussion on the Viz plugin and dashboard channels. So going forward, we're going to be aiming for monthly releases, and we've actually already cut the 0.38 branch, and that's being stabilized right now. And one change that we're going to try to introduce now is making these kind of pre-RCs available before actually starting the vote. We noticed with the kind of the official Apache release candidate vote process that's kind of slightly stiff, and there's a bunch of things that if you could have had people testing these releases for 1 or 2 days before cutting the release candidate, we could have saved a bunch of unnecessary kind of bureaucracy relating to these to the release process. So I'm going to try, when we actually start working on the next ones, we're going to try to make these available to the community beforehand, before making the official RCs. And then on preset, we've been talking about making these RCs available to key community members. So if it's not something we have yet, but if you're interested in kind of testing out RCs before the official release goes out, please be in touch. So as a release manager who's done a few of these releases, I'd really like to emphasize that the releases can only be as good as what the community participation is. So there's a bunch of things that everyone can do, and I'd really kind of like to emphasize that testing is by far the single most important thing anyone can do. So don't think that if you can't code, you can't contribute to the process. It's actually, I think, just testing and clicking around and using Superset in the way that you use it yourself, and then giving feedback if there's anything that looks off. That's by far the best way of making sure that Superset releases are high quality. And stay tuned. We're going to be I'm aiming to kick off the vote for 0.37.1 next week, and then 0.38.0 is also in the making right now. So looking forward to collaborating on that. And like I said, please help us with testing. So that's it for me. I'll pass it back to Alan, I think.
Awesome. Thanks for the presentation. We can actually answer any sort of questions before we move on to the next topic on this. So if you have questions on 0.37 and stuff that Villa just presented on, we can kind of go through some of those questions now. So I see some questions in the Q&A right now. So the first one is from Mohammed at Amex. Awesome to hear that hundreds of users are using your tool every single day. And so he has a question, if there are any plans to integrate some alerting features in Superset, and by alerting, he means alerting on slices when defined thresholds are met.
So yeah, I could take this one, since I worked on it too. So I think at Hackathon, like probably 6 weeks ago, or like 1 or 2 months ago, we worked on it. So the feature that we developed around alerts is like SQL triggered alerts, meaning by that you can write a SQL statement that if it returns a value, if it meets a threshold, it will email or Slack a picture of a chart, or a snapshot of a chart to an address of your choice, and then you can go and either programmatically through the API or manually kind of register these alerts. I know what you may be talking about here might be kind of right-clicking on a chart and say doing something like set a threshold on a line chart or something like that. So effectively today, you would have to kind of author a little bit of SQL to do this, but that foundation could be kind of hooked into the UI and in different ways, right? And the fact that it's SQL too allows you to do some things that are more complex, like looking at things like the number of standard deviations, or you can do kind of arbitrary complex things in SQL as well. I believe that, you know, there's different cells too. So if you can write a single statement that does one pass on your SQL, one scan, but can check for multiple things at once too, which kind of raises the efficiency. Villa, did you have things to add on this topic?
No, I was actually just going to be deferring it to you. So, but yeah.
I would say it's behind a feature flag now. I'll put it in the chat. I'll get the exact feature flag that it's in, and it's a maturing feature, right? So it's kind of in beta. It's being used at multiple places. It also requires for you to have a thumbnail backend setup, which requires a little bit of work. It's not necessarily too much work, but you need to have a headless browser set up, and you need to have kind of a caching backend for thumbnails. But we're working on the feature as to making it a full-on, you know, supported feature.
I also wanted to add that Bogdan and another member of his team over at Dropbox have really been pushing on this over the last few weeks, and it's under heavy development right now. So really excited to see where it goes.
It's a good time to get involved too if you're a software engineer, if you want to chime in and help, and even if you just want to make sure that your use cases and requirements are considered and kind of folded in. That's a great time to do it. So reach out to me. I can connect you with the right people too, or I mean that's the best way of doing things. But if you even on the chat here, we can send some pointers to get connected to people working actively on this.
Villa, there was a question also on like the Slack integration and like, you know, what that means. And I know we don't have documentation on that right now, so I know we answered that question, but maybe if you want to spend like a minute or two kind of covering the Slack integration.
I'd like to defer this to Bogdan if he's online.
Yeah, happy to talk more about this. But this essentially is based on top of email alerting, and as well as actually email reporting functionality. So you can, if you look into GitHub issues on Superset, you can probably find a couple examples how exactly it's configured. But essentially, what it means, if you have a proper backend setup, it's going to actually hit Superset, going to render your dashboard, and going to send a Slack message to you with a screenshot of a dashboard. As well as you can do the same thing for a chart, and then also going to send UCCs as well. It's not really well documented yet. We plan to do actually and write better documentation probably sometime next quarter. And this is probably going to cover both reporting and alerting functionality.
Awesome, great, thanks. We have a lot of other good Q&A questions coming in. There's, you know, are we planning to integrate alerts with different chatting systems such as Microsoft Teams, Telegram, etc.?
So I think like the code was written in a way I think that can be extended. We don't necessarily have an abstraction for like an alerting backend, but it could definitely be refactored into this. We already kind of are reusing bits and pieces of the code across the email functionality and the Slack functionality. So I think it'd be great to kind of create the right abstraction there and allow people to extend it in ways that make sense in their environment. So we'd definitely be supportive, can provide guidance, you know, as to how to do that well, and be supportive of kind of PRs and pull requests in that direction. I know there's all the questions. I wanted to do another kind of last minute kind of PSA. So maybe I will share my screen just for a second. But one thing that we forgot to talk about is the fact that we have SIP 50, so Superset Improvement Proposal 50, around the proposal for using eCharts as our main charting library. So you can read the SIP for more detail, but that was voted positively. So to give a little bit of context here, well, first, eChart is an Apache project. It's amazing. They're releasing their 5.0. It's super active. It's beautiful. It's consistent. They offer all sorts of charts of all shapes and flavor, and they're composable. So we were looking for a library that's actively managed, maintained, that can offer a lot more visual consistency. Historically, Superset was created as a little bit of a patchwork of all of the D3 code that was emerging at the time, and you know, the best libraries that were viable at the time at which we were working on them. Now we're realizing that NVD3, that was a library we used heavily for our core charts and kind of the more used you know, line chart, bar chart, pie charts. That library was not well maintained, and that created a little bit of a tension and risk for us. So we decided to kind of vote this in. That doesn't mean with the plugin architecture, we welcome all sorts of contribution. You could see different plugin sets, right? If someone else wanted to integrate deeply with other popular libraries and release plugin sets. We love the idea of having a very kind of thriving plugin ecosystem. But for the core visualization provided by Superset, managed and maintained by the core set of maintainers, we'll be looking to do that as much as we can using eCharts. So I think it's great news. We had some conversation with the team working on eCharts over in China. A lot of their core contributors are in China, and it's been great talking with them. I think it's going to be an awesome partnership. So just a quick thing that I wanted to mention and talk about. I think we mentioned it in the past, but we had not voted the SIP officially, and now it's voted in. So it really kind of set the direction for the future. Villa, maybe you could talk to you about a little bit about some of the first steps in that direction. So Villa's been working on the first plugins in that direction.
Yes, yeah, so there's actually a PR that's in review right now, and that's we're going to kind of start off by introducing one chart or one Viz plugin at a time. And the first one we've been working on is kind of a general time series chart that kind of covers, if you look at the existing time series charts in Superset, it covers the line chart, the bar chart, and I can't remember what else. Oh, the area chart. So essentially, it's kind of a 3-in-1 plugin, and then there's some predictive analytics in there as well. That's kind of been bolted onto the new chart data API. So we're looking to get the first eCharts Viz plugin into 0.38, and then kind of going forward, introducing more and more of these.
Yeah, so and then you should expect kind of moving forward a lot more kind of visual consistency across visualizations inside Superset, because we'll be using the same library with the same kind of visual grammar across different visualization plugins, and also like more efficient rendering. So one issue that we had with NVD3 is that it does SVG based rendering, which really kind of puts some strain on your browser when you have a lot of data points. So if you have these kind of these charts and these dashboards that are struggling, now having kind of canvas-based rendering as an option in eCharts, I think is gonna kind of give some breathing room for your browser, which is great, because people are making these very complex dashboards with a lot of charts. So this will help a lot. Alan, back to you for Q&A.
Awesome. Well, the next question actually kind of dovetails nicely into our next kind of topic, and so which is the aspirational timelines for graduating from incubation, and maybe we can cover what that means. But before we do that, as part of like moving into graduation, one of the things that we have to do is improve our website and the documentation site, and so we wanted to give everyone here a preview of the new website that we will be launching hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And so I'm going to push this and kind of bring in Philip, who has been working on kind of the redesign here. And if Philip, if you can jump on and share your screen, maybe you can walk everyone through some of the screenshots and some of the new layouts for the website.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Okay, cool. Yeah, let me share my screen. Let's see. Is this the guy? Sure. Cool. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, perfect. So yeah, if you guys remember, we kind of had like this old doc site. It was just a little bit dated, and yeah, we decided to update it and add in some more content and resources for you guys for any questions that might come up in your development. So yeah, I went ahead and we started this new refresh. Just make it just the basic simple layout, just to give you the information that you need. So yeah, what we have here is just pretty much straightforward, straight to the point overview of the project, and yeah, just some quick gifs of what's going on. Yeah, we have here, like, you can see at the charts, our dashboards. You can look at the previews of what you can do with Superset. And we also have here our supported data sources, which links out to the actual data source documentation, so you can get more resources that you need from them. Also, we have here our Slack, our Stack Overflow, and our and the link to the project. So next thing will be, if you want to get involved with Apache Superset, you would come here and you will get more links and resources to just be more involved and ask questions. We also have links here to our PMC members. We also have resources here, which is just some links to our Docker image, the preset blog, and YouTube videos. And we also, and lastly,
we need more people. We need more people to publish, talks and YouTube videos. It's not just me on there. I'm just like looking at myself here, but yeah.
Well, that gives some context and history. So if anyone wants to see some of the early videos of Max, this is a great place. But we'll be posting like webinar videos and whatnot to this site as well, so people have access.
Birthdays.
Also, and lastly, is the new doc refresh. So yeah, basically, we took out this long endless scroll that you have to do with our doc site. Yeah, everything was just kind of clumped together. I think it's just a better look and feel and search of everything is kind of compartmentalized into its own little container kind of thing. So yeah, here you can get all the information and resources that you need. Yeah, and I think that's it. If anybody has any questions.
So I can add a few things. So this currently we've been working on a repo temporarily, but this will be folded into the docs folder in the main repo. And everyone's welcome to contribute to, where this was mostly a major facelift, and we want for superset.apache.org to not just be the documentation too, but become more a community hub over time. So that we can have like all the resources and links to different things too, right? So everyone's welcome to contribute to this, and it should be in the main repo very, very soon.
Awesome. And Max, if you want to maybe spend like 2 minutes talking about like graduation and like the process of graduation, what that means, and then maybe some general timelines. I know we don't have nothing set right now.
Right. So I've been through this before. So I'm the original creator of Apache Airflow, and Airflow became a top level project, I believe early last year. And it's a little bit of a process, but it's a very well documented thing at Apache. So we've been incubating for way too long. I think what's been, well, so what does that mean, right? So at the Apache Software Foundation, to become kind of a top level project, you need to go through this incubation phase. And the idea there is to learn what they call the Apache way, which is essentially the governance model and the way of doing things that is prescribed by Apache. Apache has governance rules to make communities very kind of inclusive and function well in a very kind of legal way too. So they have processes around releases, around voting people in, around who can do what. So it's a fairly prescriptive governance model that ensures that people can get involved and that the community is thriving and diverse in terms of like organizations and they have all sorts of resources that they offer, including data tooling in some way. So if you've seen some of the Apache website, like some things feel like they were written like 15 years ago, it's because they were. So we're following these processes. What we need to do to become a top level project is a collection of things. The one thing that is most important that took a lot of time for us originally was to get to a steady release process, doing Apache releases following their process. So their process involves, voting releases in and having a lot of hygiene around the kind of licensing of the libraries that we use to build the software, which I think is one of the very nice things with Apache. It's kind of a certification and a stamp that, well, first you can get involved, right? And that the governance model is kind of ensured, right? There's no one that can pull the blanket and change the project. Like everyone can get involved. And kind of it's a meritocracy where people can kind of earn merit and help govern the project as they earn merit. So I think we're at a point, like, to kind of make a shorter story out of this, is like we've checked most of the boxes at this point. I believe there's like some kind of thin layer of paperwork to be done before we can kind of kick off the process. And there's probably like 20 or so boxes to check, and we've checked most of them over the past few years. So we're hoping to graduate before the end of the year. And we started talking about Superset 1.0. I think we'll have more conversations on that, or socialize like kind of what we're thinking and involve the community in defining what Superset 1.0 is going to be. But it's kind of two things that can be coupled very nicely together. So it's kind of important milestone and point in time where there's a certain level of completeness and quality of the software along with the graduation. I think that goes very, very nicely together, and we'd love to do that before the end of this year. They're not coupled necessarily, right? We can graduate first and get Superset 1.0 after, or vice versa. But I think we're almost there. So we're looking to kick off the graduation process as soon as we can. So over the next like few weeks, few months, knowing Apache, how things are a little slow, it's definitely going to take at least weeks and probably months.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on with like 1.0. We would love to kind of, get feedback from the community. So we encourage you guys to be involved. There's also some surveys that are being conducted right now in terms of like users and whatnot. And this will all help with kind of us defining 1.0 and pushing that forward and making sure that the Superset project, continues to improve and have your input as well. So please continue to stay involved in the community, on the Slack channel, and provide feedback. I'm also going to pass it over now to Kevin, who's going to talk a little bit about like our Champions program, which is something that we were sort of kind of piloting, and he can kind of go a little bit deeper into that.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. So just to give everybody a quick context to the Superset Community Champion Program, which is a experimental program that we started running about 2 months ago to really bring on enthusiastic Superset users to kind of scale our community support to kind of help them help everybody else. And a lot of you may be hearing about this for the first time if you are new to the Superset community. So I just want to let you know that that is happening. And also we have our first batch of, I believe, at least 5 champions that we will be announcing in our community Slack channel so that people know who they are. We're gonna make a special badge for them so you kind of visually can identify them. And the role that they play is really to scale up our community support, right? There's a lot of people, new people coming into Superset's ecosystem really every single day. We at Preset and others from Airbnb and other committers, we're all trying our best to support everybody, and we want to bring on more people to be able to help everybody else do that. And that's the kind of the role of these champions. So you'll be seeing a lot of them being more active in Slack, being more active on Stack Overflow to answer questions. So it will be a really great program, I think, that will help a lot of people. And also, if you are interested in becoming a champion in the future, we'll definitely be opening up kind of new classes or new batches of this program kind of periodically. So if you want to become more involved in the entirety that is Apache Superset, that will be a great way to be a part of it. So that is what the Superset Community Champion Program is all about. Again, look for announcements of who they actually are, at least this first group of champions, in our Slack kind of hashtag announcement channel to get that news.
And I'll add a few things, like providing a little bit more context about the Apache Software Foundation, the governance model I just talked about. There's different roles kind of defined by the Apache Software Foundation. One is committer and one is PMC member. So committer means that essentially you can review code and merge code. And PMC member is project member committee, right? A project management committee. I think it means that essentially you can vote on important matters like, who can become a committer and what releases, whether a release is approved or not, or change in governance. So that means if we want to vote a new rule in governance, say we need to have 2 approvers to merge a PR. Let's say if we were to vote that new rule, the PMC members would be the people voting on this. So we published a list of official committers, right? Because it's something that's well defined by Apache, and there's a process to get people voted in. And I think the Champions program is kind of an accelerated on-ramp to become a committer too. So we want to kind of include and allow people from different places, different parts of the world, different companies and organizations to become active part of our community. And there's a gap between sometimes being from being someone who wants to contribute and someone who's effectively an engaged committer. How do you go from one to the other is not always super clear to people. So I would say if you're interested in getting more involved, the Champions program is like a lot of support that we offer for people to get active, become committers, get more involved.
Right.
Yeah, so I just shared a link in the chat that has like a registration form for any additional people who may be interested in participating in this. We're still trying to figure it out and how we can best support you. And so we always welcome more people, more feedback as well. So if you're interested, there's a link in this chat below that you can click on and register for it.
And a few more notes too. So one is, in our community so far, that I said there's a distinction between committer and PMC member, where PMC members can vote. So for us, I think we haven't made the distinction between the two as we're incubating. I believe every committer who's been active recently or onboarded as a committer recently is also a PMC member, because we want people to have access to govern. We want more people to vote. So we don't really have that distinction at this time. And then, the Apache Software Foundation is a meritocracy. I mentioned that. So how do you build merit is the big question. Like how, and you can do code contribution, but you can also answer questions. You can give talks. You can submit Superset improvement proposals. So there's all sorts of ways that people can get involved in the Champions program, kind of help people find their way.
Great, awesome. So that kind of concludes most of the Q&A and presentations. We now have about 10 minutes left for any sort of open mic. And so this is just kind of a free time for anyone who wants to kind of make announcements to the community. You can feel free to raise your hand and I can unmute you and you guys can make an announcement. Or this is like if you're hiring. In fact, for us here at Preset, we are hiring for a lot of different engineering roles. And so if you go to our website, you can see some of the job postings that we have right now, but we are definitely looking to hire, security engineers, infrastructure engineers, QA, full stack engineers. So that's something that we are hiring for during this time. So if you guys are interested, make sure to go to our website, preset.io. We are hiring there. We're also looking for a full-time community manager. And so if there's people who are interested in kind of engaging with the community, running the community, to do things like this and to kind of build the Superset community to the next level, we're also looking to bring on someone full-time to kind of run that program as well. And so if you guys are interested, reach out. You can reach out to me directly on the Slack channel, or you can go to our website and apply directly through there.
Yeah, other ideas for open mics too is like if someone is like, oh, I'd like to start working on something and I'd love to collaborate on a certain topic. How do there could be kind of these requests. There's also call to action. I think like if people want to do some call to action to open mics, a good time for that. Yep. We have a couple of other questions coming in too. So one of the questions, like, who is the Champions program for? Is it targeted at analysts or software engineers? It's actually targeted for anyone who's interested in the Superset project. I think one of the things that's unique for Superset is that it touches such a wide spectrum of users, both on the engineering side as well as kind of like data analysts. And we need to support kind of all the user types. And so we welcome people who may just be on the analyst side, who can help answer questions and help the community with things around like usability. And then also people on the engineering side who can help maybe even answer questions or interested in more on like, committing code directly to the project. So we welcome this for anyone, different roles, personas and whatnot. So happy to have you. We're just looking for people who are excited about the project. Any other open mic or questions?
I think there are a few questions in the Q&A still that are open that just rolled in. So we can kind of go through that.
One question is how about contributing to make a data source for Apache Cassandra? Max, I don't know if you want to take this one. I can take this one. I think it's really, someone asked about Mongo early, maybe before we got started. I think Cassandra is similar. For us, it makes it a lot easier if the database support a subset, at least a subset of SQL, right? So we need a database that can do filters and group bys. We don't need joins, so we support databases that don't do joins. And we kind of play some tricks around that, where sometimes we'll do like a two-phase SQL query where we do a first query, then we get the results to construct the second SQL. I don't know where the story is in terms of like SQL support in Cassandra. So there's also something interesting about these key value store that support key range scans. Is that you can put databases like Presto on top of it that know how to speak SQL. So I know, there are some projects out there that allow for a federating kind of query engine like Presto to scan data in a key value store like Cassandra and do some work on top of it. So it's an alternative way to do that. But I would research whether Cassandra has some sort of SQL support. If it does, it's a really good sign. And then what we require, being in the Python, having a Python backend, is we need a SQL Alchemy driver built on top of a DB API, or it's a SQL Alchemy dialect built on top of a DB API driver.
And that is fairly easy to do. Beto, who's part of this community, wrote, I believe, at least 2 of these drivers, one for Apache Pinot, one for Google Spreadsheet, which interestingly has support for SQL or very odd SQL support. So I would encourage you to do a little bit of research, and we're happy to help and kind of point out as to how this can be done. But yeah, I would look up SQL support. If it doesn't have SQL support, I would Google something like Presto Cassandra connector, and then see if you can kind of put Presto on top of Cassandra, which, be mindful, it will result in like potentially a lot of scan on your Cassandra cluster, so database.
Well, we have a couple more. Do we have a plan to have a data dictionary similar to Looker in Superset's roadmap? It helps a ton in letting business users search definitions and metrics easily.
I'll take this one too. So I think a data dictionary mentioned here is like what other people and other projects called the semantic layer, which is kind of what your BI tool knows about your database schema in order to construct more complex SQL. So we do have a plan, I believe, to support kind of star schema abstractions. So there is like some designs that we've done on that, and we feel like it's pretty doable. It probably will not look and feel exactly like LookML, but it could be some sort of ways for Superset to learn how to do joins, which I think would be pretty doable, pretty easy to do. In the meantime, what we recommend people to do is to create views, or either to materialize flat data sets, which is really kind of what the interface for Superset is. It's like, we connect to tabular data sets, whether they are physical tables or views. So we instruct people to create views and then to use that as a source for their exploration and chart creation.
Awesome. And then one is like, do we plan to support, exports to PDF files other than CSVs?
Do PDFs still exist? So this question comes up often, but like what we instruct people to do is that you can kind of print to PDF. No, it's not ideal, but in your browser, you can kind of Control P and say save as PDF. I do not know what it would take, but we certainly like consider and look at pull requests in that direction.
Yeah,
I think the next one is something around like any plans to find a better SQL parser, SQL builder. So I'm not sure. I think these 2 things are very different to me. But SQL parser, we use something called SQL parse, I believe, in the code base to do things like kind of cut SQL statements in SQL Lab into different sub-statements. We use that to kind of get the table names out of a query for security purposes. So that seems to be working for us. We looked at that in the past, and I don't think there's a lot of great SQL parsing libraries out there. I think there are probably some new ones. I'd be curious to know more about the kind of intent and use case behind the question.
There was actually a question on machine learning, machine learning models and integration into Superset. That question was taken off, but I'd still like to answer that one. So on the new chart data API, we've introduced Facebook Profit, which is a time series prediction library, and that's going to be made available on the new forthcoming eCharts time series chart. But going forward on the roadmap, we were planning on introducing a kind of a data transformation plugin architecture where you could essentially plug in any kind of machine learning model. So it's not something that's going to be made available very soon, but it's still on the horizon.
Awesome. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff that we've seen Villa demo. So maybe that's something that we can show off in future meetups as well. Okay, well, guys, that takes us to the top of the hour. We appreciate everyone attending today. Again, we'll make this video recording available for those who want to kind of replay anything that Villa presented on. Big thanks again to Villa, Philip as well for presenting on 0.37 and showing off some of the new website as well. So We appreciate you guys taking the time, and we'll hopefully see you guys soon, and stay active on Slack. Thanks, guys.